Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Cyber Queens. We are, of course, your hosts, Meryl, Erica, and Amber. I'm Meryl Vernon, resident pen test ninja, ethical hacker, and offensive security expert. So pen test ninja is a new title I got to add.
Yes.
We have Amber back with us this week. She's back.
Hey guys, welcome today. No, I'm kidding. Amber DeVilbus. I am an account director in cybersecurity.
And Erica, Miss CEO herself.
Yes, I'm Erica Eakins, recovering abused sales rep who was technical and then went to CEO, AE to CEO of a soon-to-be company that I can't talk about yet.
I mean,
still
slightly painful. We're all slightly trauma twitching for you, but at the same time, that's kind of a relevant commentary because today's topic is an interesting one and also kind of sad. You know, we the queens want to give you guys the real of what it's like to be here. And there is so much opportunity and there is so much encouragement in community, but you will also sometimes meet toxic work environments. You will meet limiting mindsets and inherent bias. And those are just things that unfortunately we can't avoid. And so today's topic was actually, I'll let Erica introduce it because she brought it to mine and Amber's attention. We were both like, what's happening? And I went down the rabbit hole. So Erica, take it away, ma'am.
So today's topic is about women who are in cyber and overall the tech industry that are leaving in large amounts. There is no specific percentage or like they surveyed 1,000 people and 50% of them said they're leaving. But there's a lot of data that surrounds why women would leave the industry, why they would not continue to get promoted and try. So this topic came about because I talked to 5 of my people in my network. 3 of them were women and 2 of them were minorities or are minorities. And they all told me that as of what's going on in the industry, they're leaving the industry, not even trying to, find another job. And the treatment is just terrible. So I went down the rabbit hole of like research and there's tons of articles about why they leave and what would cause, the problems that we're having on top of all the layoffs and the shift in the industry. And, I can list out all these things, but I also found that the U.S. Surgeon General has identified that toxic work environments are bad for mental health. So then I went down the mental health rabbit hole and I found so much data, Deloitte, WeSys, the U.S. Surgeon General,
Tech Republic,
and a lot of it is, they're not getting pay raises, they're not getting promoted, they're disrespected. Sexual harassment is actually rising, and women are getting fired or not coming back. I actually, after being laid off for the 3rd time earlier this year, in March, I thought about leaving the industry completely, and then I said, you know what? I've worked my butt off. I'm going to start a dang company. So
you're going to do it better. You're going to do it right.
Yeah.
No, it's true. And honestly, when I first met Erica and Amber, they were both dealing with some situations in the workplace that I was like, I have never. And I don't know if that's just because I'm on the engineering side. I mean, I've met my fair amount of people talking down to me and listen, little girl, like, you don't know what you're talking about. But like, it is so much worse. Like it has been so much worse. Your guys' view. So I don't know if that's just a sales thing or if that's just like,
it's a very big thing in sales for sure. I think just in general, not just in this industry, but especially in this industry, there's a lot of stuff that you deal with that I never dealt with when I was on the engineering side or when I was an analyst, none of that. So until I got to the sales side, but I think it also depends on like the company. Like right now I work for a company where they value, we just hired this amazing woman, JR, over at Evotech where I work. And they, the CEO is one of the reasons that I took this job was because he believes in giving back. He believes in all these things, but he also believes in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Right. And it shows every day. We have so many programs to help support other people in this initiative. So I think the culture can definitely help kind of sway around that. But I do think it starts at the top too. So that's why we're all excited that Erica's doing this because
Yeah.
who better to start that?
Yeah, we think this
Yeah.
is perfect for Erica. It's like one of Erica's callings, I'm pretty sure.
I'm aiming to change that and, to be what Stacey Champagne says, a change maker. That's one of her businesses. I'm going to use that because a change maker is somebody that, strives for change. This is my definition, not hers. Strives for change and actually does something about it. And we really need to focus in on if companies are actually doing a DE&I initiative because they're being paid by BlackRock or they're forced by BlackRock and Vanguard and all these companies that are controlling them, or is it that they really want the diversity? And it's interesting that I also found, because I've talked to some CISOs that are allies for women, and one specifically, I can't name him, but he knows who he is if he's listening. And the lack of male allies is also a problem. And, I have my soon to be CRO, she in her past would, be presenting or say something and the room would be all men and they would just kind of, oh yeah, yeah. But then, 20 minutes later, a guy would say the same thing and everybody would be like, yes, yeah, bro. And the not being inclusive, it really shifts people away from, a lot of industries. And the pandemic, a lot of women left the industry overall. And we don't have enough that are coming into cyber. So we can't afford to keep losing those women.
I know. I feel so bad. We're like, come join us here. Like the industry's fun and effervescent and great. And like, I'm out here winning all these recognizing women in cyber awards. But I'm like, how am I not aware of this? What are some of you guys going through that I'm unaware of while I'm over here on my like happy cloud? So like I needed this reality check for sure. So we're gonna start off with like things that constitute a toxic work environment, because that's the first thing that Erica mentioned. So it was actually noted by the US Surgeon General in a study that we assisted that toxic work environments and toxicity in the workplace greatly affect your mental and physical health. Like we all know mental health affects your physical health, but like a toxic work environment can actually contribute to like people. I've seen people at my mom's companies who like get sent home for panic attacks and like literally like get ulcers developed because they're working themselves so hard and they're so afraid to lose their jobs. And I'm like, this is.
She's frozen. You're frozen. Meryl's in a remote location.
Meryl, am I back?
You're back.
Am I back?
Okay,
I'm gonna speak slower. So Erica, why don't you go over some of those things that constitute what makes a toxic work environment and why it's contributing to women leaving and such forth, because it was actually noted that 50% of women leave the tech industry before they're 35. And maybe that's why there was such an opening for people of my age. I joined when I was 30 to come in, but we don't want people enrolling in freshman year and leaving junior year so that more, juniors and seniors can come in. Like we want people to stay. So I'll give it to you because you've got better internet than me. I'm in BFE right now, you guys. Literally.
So according to the U.S. Surgeon General, the 5 attributes of a toxic work environment are being disrespectful, non-inclusive, unethical, cutthroat, and abusive. So there's laws surrounding, you can't create a hostile work environment. There's no sexual harassment, but being abusive is actually part of the, creating a harassing work environment and hostile work environment. And it's very hard to prove. I do believe that the U.S. Surgeon General highlighting this may help, but I also think that companies are going to put their shield up and kind of just be really guarded because this all relates back to mental health and the retention of women. This affects us, I don't know more than men. That's not a fact that I can state, but the same study found that the women, impacted by the lack of respect and career opportunities have the mental health issues. These are directly from the U.S. Surgeon General's report, so we'll link it in the notes and comments after the podcast, but you can read it yourself. WESIS, actually, their state of inclusion report, they respect career growth, access and participation, recognition, and appreciation, very similar to what the U.S. Surgeon General has noted here. And it got me to thinking, like, okay, I'm disrespected as a salesperson for the last 12 years. We all know that I've been through some crap, but there's women that I talk to that they've never felt this, right? And there's some that are like, I can't even be in tech anymore. I want to go Uber instead of working for, you know, these companies. So I really started thinking on how do we keep the women that we have, let alone try to get more women in the industry. That's not something that I can answer today. But again, I do think more allies speaking out and looking for pay discrepancies in their companies, looking for, you know, if there's promotions, whatever the case may be. If women are leaving before age 35, how is Gen Z and Gen Alpha gonna, you know, the two largest workforces that are coming up for generations, you know, for years to come, how are we going to get those ladies here?
Yeah,
Right.
we're going to lose them.
Yeah.
We're gonna get them here, and then we're gonna lose them. And we're not gonna lose. It's not gonna take till 35. We're gonna try and get them at 22 when they leave college, and they're gonna leave by 25. They're not having it. They're not.
Mhm.
They're not gonna stick around.
Yeah. I think if I can just add in this
Yeah.
piece, right? Because we've seen, I guess, right, the Silicon Valley kind of bro culture, so to speak. One of the things, right, and I think maybe at one point or another, some of us have gone through this as women in the industry, but not having and I don't like using the word like safe space because it kind of, you know, people are like, oh, here we go again, right? But some kind of like feeling safe enough to actually talk to somebody about it if something is going on, right? So it's like you're always seen as a whistleblower if you maybe speak out on something, right? Or if you, you know, stand up for yourself or draw a boundary, suddenly you're, you know, hysterical or, you know, whatever kind of adjective is used against you, so to speak. I mean, I've been in this industry for 15 years. I've been in sales for like well, if you count being an SE, a few years now. But I'm telling you, the amount of, how do I put this? The amount of bro culture that I've seen and the amount of like, oh my gosh, like, oh, you're going to draw a boundary, you're going to speak up. I don't know about this. Like, kind of stay away from this one, right? Like, that's kind of the culture that I've experienced, and no matter which role I've been in, I've seen it everywhere. I've seen it done better in other places. By better, I mean not, you know, as much, or where at least, like I said, we kind of talked about this earlier, and somebody commented, right? It starts from the top, so leadership kind of sets the culture. And I've seen a lot of leaders come in and counteract and say, you know what? Nope. If there's even one complaint, we're going to change how we're doing things, right? Because I don't want any single one of you to feel disrespected or like you don't have a voice or that you're not heard or treated as an equal. So I've seen some places do it better than others, but I definitely agree. I think the biggest thing for companies, right? Because inclusivity is great if it's actually practiced. And how do you know, it's not always going to be practiced 100% of the time. So what do you do when it's not, right? And I think that's a huge one, making an environment where people can actually speak out without repercussions or fear for their job is huge.
Yeah. And I haven't been meant with like really, really volatile situations, actually until recently at a con, which I won't go into yet. I actually still have to tell both of you about that. But I have had it told to me where like someone was being abused by their manager, not even like harassed, just like being barely in proportion to the rest of them. And they're like, if they try to come forward, if they try to say something, it's like, do you really want that to be the sword that you fall on? Like, you're going to be, you know, the Monica Lewinsky, you're going to be the person who's making a big deal out of nothing, who's making it all about you, who's making it like, you think your one little incident is enough to like take me down. Like, I've been with this company for years. And it's like, you literally get silenced because you think you're not going to affect you. You don't want it to happen to other people, but you're like, what can I do? I'm just one person. Right. I wouldn't say safe space. What they list in the study is protection from harm, which I think is a great way, because we don't need a safe space. We don't need to, I don't not feel safe walking into the building. I don't not feel safe. What I do need though is like mental safety and security, and to know that I'm not just going to be talked down to in a meeting in front of a customer because I'm a girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
well,
totally agree.
In my rabbit hole of research, Tech Republic wrote an article and they quoted some things from a report that managed services provider Ensonio wrote. And it states that a significant number of women working in tech experience physical and verbal harassment in their careers, and nearly half in the US have seen an increase in the workplace of sexual harassment in the last 5 years. Now, if I've experienced sexual harassment, verbal abuse, physical abuse. People don't play like that with me because they know better. I will hurt somebody, but the verbal and sexual harassment. I worked for a company, and I'm never going to say who did it. My direct manager threatened to come to Denver and whoop my butt, and I was like, let's go. I'll meet you on the runway because I know I can take you. But
she's gonna take down the plane.
Erica could us, so I'm not gonna mess with Erica.
Well, but anytime I've spoke up about anything, and this is not just in sales, people, I can't speak for these women, but people are very comfortable coming to me and telling me things. I've had my tech teams come to me and say that they were disrespected, harassed, whatever. And some of these companies were really great companies. And it's unfortunate because it's continuing to get worse. And I'm going to link this article from Tech Republic. It's insane, the numbers of, and what they found out by surveying actual women in the US, the UK. So this isn't just happening here. It is happening globally. And I've seen a shift of, this is just me personally, what I've seen in the last, 5 years is we've had all these people speaking out and supporting women, minorities, and the LGBTQIA plus community. And now it's like they're fighting against us. It's like the reverse engineering is happening right now because they were for helping us. Now they're like sick of it and they're actually hurting us. There's a situation that's, that happened with DEF CON coming up this year that I won't speak on because I don't know much about it. And it created a whole entire group to create their own darn conference.
SquadCon.
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 I'll let Meryl talk about that one if you want to touch on that because I don't know much about it. But they were, this whole entire group, they were denied their application to be a part of something at DEF CON. So
basically what happened was Girls Hack Village, which has always been a village, not always, but has been a village inside DEF CON. Their village is phenomenal. First of all, it's usually standing room only for their workshops and their talks. And it's for so much more than girls. It's really like a place where a lot of different groups feel they can come and find community, especially members of the LGBTQIA community. So they were told by DEF CON this year that what their village offers, CTFs, resume reviews, talks, workshops, that those activities, this is the official reason, are already well represented by the other villages. And so there is nothing unique that Girls Hack Village brings to DEF CON to justify giving them a village space. And, we as members of the community saw this as not the case because, no two activity items are really the same anyway, but like the subject matter is often different and geared differently and has a different lens on it. So it frankly broke the hearts of a lot of people and organizations. People like Raíces put out a statement on it. We have yet to, because we were still waiting to see how all this came down. But it did result that Girls Hack Village got together with a few other people, and they are putting together a mini one-day summit called SquadCon. So if you're interested in SquadCon, you can go check it out. It's going to be very cool. It's by all the same people from Girls Hack Village, going to have all the same things that they used to have there, but it is happening outside of DEF CON. So that is the facts at this time to comment on that. So I just feel like that's the exclusion. That could be an example of the exclusion we're talking about. So some of these main factors contributing to women leaving are the exclusion and the lack of growth opportunity.
Yeah.
And those are frankly problems that are linked to satisfaction, to fulfillment with your job, right? Like not even the disrespect factor, not even the on a small scale holding people back from opportunities factor, but like just the exclusion, just being told like you don't need that, there's already a place for you, when is there really a seat for us and a place for us? And those are often also linked to retention rates. Like this is the reason we can't, like even if we get women in here, we can't retain them. The retention is a whole separate issue. So
and like some of these studies, like I was explaining, I was blown away. The same study from Tech Republic, I'm going to quote this. 91% of Latina women and 72% of Black women said they've experienced discouragement or setbacks in their careers compared to 64% of white women. This is the same study, and it is about the tech industry and the inequality. And that this goes for, every industry, but I can't talk about that. And the survey also finds that many of the respondents say they have been discouraged from pursuing STEM careers.
Yeah.
What? Like that's a way too young. It's not right. It's not good at any age, but they're already starting to discourage them at the STEM level, which is, something that we stand for 100%. Teach Kids Tech is going to help, kids in underserved and unrepresented communities. But if we have the people in charge not backing us or following a narrative, whatever, I don't want to take it political, because it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. It matters that this is crap, and companies are just saying they do, have a DE&I initiative, and actually turning around and, sticking these people and women and minorities in the corner. And I'm still blown away with this.
Here's my thing though. If I could be in tech, and sure, I'm going to meet all the things that you were talking about, right? And I have. Honestly, I had, like I said, a very scary run-in at a conference recently. I went to 3 this month, by the way, so you don't know which one it was. But you see the same thing in every industry. So I'm like, if I could be working in cyber, where again, I have the hours I want, the projects I want, the salaries I need, etc., why would I leave just to go potentially encounter that somewhere else where I at least don't have all these other factors working for me? I just feel like, and honestly, unfortunately, this is my mindset as a woman, I'm going to meet that everywhere. I'm going to be met with defeat and opposition everywhere. So at least I might as well reap what I want from it.
Not everybody feels that way because of the challenges they face, and because of, things can get pretty scary. Just, I've gotten yelled at so many times on a daily basis. I can handle that kind of stuff because I'm very, very strong, but I know a lot of women that cannot, and it triggers, their trauma response, or just anything. It can trigger anything in them, and they find something else that looks bright and shiny for them at the moment, and that's why they are, it's the right decision to leave tech. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know it has to start from the top down, which is a lot of the times the problem, because in tech, there's not a lot of female founders. There's not a lot of female VCs. There's not a lot of female executives. We're seeing more and more. So don't jump down my throat. But the progress that we have made, we're actually shifting backwards and losing it at a higher rate than the progress that we've made over the last 10 years. And, after COVID, women left the workforce overall, and because they wanted to stay at home or whatever they wanted to do, but has affected tech and cyber even more.
And I wanted to, before we jump onto that part, just to say speak to what you were saying earlier. I think a lot of it too, like especially me, right? When I came into the industry, I think it was, I know it was very extremely male dominated, right? We're talking 15 years ago. So I come in, I have a totally different mindset than most. I'm not going to be extreme here, but just say a lot of my peers were like, hey, we do things this way, we do things that way. And if you think about it, right, when we talk about DEI and all of these things, it's even if you don't believe in, oh, well, people shouldn't be treated differently just because they're a woman or whatever. I think it's not even that. I mean, you're cutting out 50% of the population, right, by not being inclusive of women, but that's also 50% of innovative ideas. That's new and better ways of doing things. So I think diversity in general is just even diversity of the mind of, hey, maybe this person's going to come in, whether they're, a boomer, sorry guys, or, Gen X, like whoever it is, maybe there's new ways that we can do things. Right. And that's why I mean, I do what I do, right? I was terrified to do this. You know, both of you guys know my parents are like, keep your head down, stop making videos, stop doing these weird things. Just go with the flow. Just go with what you're supposed to be doing. We've been in IT for 30 years. It's always been this way, you know, and that's fine. But I'm also very much so. That's why it's such a strong, passionate topic for me, because I am the first person to speak up and speak out, whether it means my job or not, because I always fight for equality, no matter what it's for, right? But then also, just I don't know how to explain it. It feels like there's a lot of times where women, more often than not, will come in and we go, oh, you know, maybe I came from finance, or maybe I came from, you know, a completely different industry where it hasn't been, what's the word, so draconian in nature. And this bro culture has been around for forever in IT, and just within the last 10 years, even, I think it started changing. But it's not, every time you meet change, you're going to have challenge. And I think there's a lot of women who come in and they're like, I'm going to change it. It's going to be great. And then there's just, unfortunately, so many roadblocks that you're going to run into. And like you said, Erica, a lot of the time, some of these women who are used to maybe, hey, I can make a little bit of a wave and then I can have some change, right? Here, it's like every day is an ocean of waves, right? So I think a lot of it has to do with the specific, I guess, longstanding kind of, what is the word I'm looking for? God, you guys, longstanding, you know, kind of reputation that tech has. Yeah, like Uber. I'm just always going to revert back to Uber. And if you guys haven't seen like the docuseries on that or whatever, you should, because it explains everything and it kind of really paints a picture of what a lot of people deal with every day here. And I think it's just because it's gone unchecked for so long that all of us who are sticking around are kind of pushing through. Like Erica, I mean, I'm telling you, dude, she's the calmest person I know under pressure. And it's because she's had so many at bats and been, you know, shit on so many times in the industry by, you know, coworkers outside of work, things like that, you know, she's made for what she's doing right now, because she's going to be somebody who innovates and pushes through regardless of what obstacles she's
Thank you. That makes me feel so much better, because I get death threats right now.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's crazy stuff. It's crazy.
I don't talk about it. Oh,
like,
sorry.
You see in a business movie, like a man like yelling into the phone at his colleague and slamming the phone down. It's like, yeah, man, you get him. But you see a woman do that. It's like, oh my God, she's being a bee right now. What's her problem? Like,
yeah.
Didn't Matt Damon just do that? And it was fine?
Yeah.
It's true. And one thing I want to say off Amber before we move to the COVID topic is we need to be careful that we're not so advocating for diversity of underrepresented groups that we start to reverse discriminate against even those who might be well represented in one demographic, but not in another. So, you know, reverse ageism is a thing. Like, you know, we call them boomers and stuff, but I'm trying to get my mother 60s into cyber. And I think she deserves to be here. And she's been one of those underrepresented, overworked minorities. So, you know, we want to be inclusive of everybody. And I agree. It's diversity of thought, diversity of approach, diversity of background, diversity of problem solving. We just get a lot of that from the different worldviews that come from ethnic backgrounds and different lifestyles and things like that. So we're not saying, we're not saying that we just want to see more varieties of people in here for the fun of it. We really do think it will drive cyber forward. But getting to the COVID thing, interesting topic, Erica, because female employment did drop in general, not just in cyber, but across many industries and verticals due to COVID. And I was so outraged, but interested to read this. Apparently, and we're going to link this study, it was so bad during the pandemic that if we don't course correct quickly, we will lose a decade's worth of gender equality progress in like the next year or two. And that is because when the pandemic hit, you know, a lot of and everyone was staying home, a lot of the traditionally home affiliated activities fell to the women, and the women said, it's just easier for me to leave my job and you to continue to work from home and me to take over the rest of that stuff. So you don't have to. And also, as daycares were closed, as childcare was closed, and you couldn't go to your neighbor, you couldn't go to your parents, like, who's going to take care of the kids? Again, we're expected to raise kids like we have no job and work like we have no kids. So it's like all that fell to women traditionally, and it hasn't recovered. And it doesn't look like it's going to recover unless something drastic is done. What do you guys think of that?
That blew my mind. Obviously, I did all the, not that you guys didn't research this, but I brought this to you guys. So I literally spent hours reading stuff. And I just went way, way deep. This could be a 2-hour episode. But I think that it has some of it has come back, but we've lost so much that the little bit of women that have come back into the workforce in general is not enough. And what blows my mind is that the women were the ones expected to not go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you are a traditional family person and you believe that the wife staying home and the man going to work, or vice versa. I don't really care. But what pissed me off is that women were expected without question to, or without even being asked to stay home. And that's fine. I'm not bashing women for making that decision. And, women have a lot of power. There, we do have a lot more than, equality than we used to have. We didn't have the right to vote, at one point. But I, I feel that it is so chauvinistic to expect the woman to give up her career, stay home. And then there's women that don't have the choice. Like the three of us, we're single moms. If we had young children that couldn't go to daycare and we didn't work from home, what would we do? And
One of
that
them has to
pissed
give.
me off.
Children
Yeah.
got to be taken care of. The work is optional, I guess.
Right.
I just think that school of thought of expecting the woman to always change and make the sacrifices is a bunch of crap. And like I said, I get it. There's nothing wrong with if you choose, but were you ever really asked? Did you ever really have the opportunity to not stay home?
No.
Yeah,
And
and I mean, I guess I'll kind of be a little bit of a, I don't know what you want to call it here, not devil's advocate, but I do think that is more on the personal side. So, for example, back when those articles were coming out about COVID, or during COVID, about women leaving tech and everything else, it was kind of like, hey, women are choosing to because whatever, everything is so much more expensive now, and
Mhm.
daycare and this and that. But I do think that that's a personal decision that a lot of women made. I
Yes.
personally didn't, but that's because, again, I was at a company with a culture of, hey, we recognize that remote work is happening now for everybody. Oh,
There
sorry
goes
guys,
your
nope,
screen.
apparently went out.
fine.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, no. I'll see if I can fix that. But either way, having women stay home and kind of take care of everything, for me personally, it was more of a, I guess, an option for my sake, right? Because I didn't really have somebody telling me, no, you can't go. I need you to do this, right? I was already at that point single. So it's kind of making the best decisions for yourself. But I was also fortunate enough to be at a company where, they allowed and encouraged working from home, and they also allowed
Mhm.
everything else along with that, right? So I don't know. That's kind of the thing, right? Like Elon Musk, right? He just came out a few months ago saying, hey, people who the whole idea of working from home is lazy, right? And it's stealing from the company, and it's not any of this stuff. And, I liked Elon Musk for a long time, but I will absolutely disagree with him on that. I do think that there are some
Yep.
roles, many roles actually, which don't require, this kind of lifestyle. I get, a lot of stuff he was talking about Tesla and SpaceX and things like that, and working, on site. But there's so many jobs, you guys, out there where you should be
Yes.
able to have a work-life balance.
Yes, there is. And it is a choice. There's nothing wrong with the choice that women make, but I've seen personal friends and people that I know. Oh, hey, Sarah. People that I know, the husband and the wife both had great jobs. The wife was expected to stay home, and it caused, friction and tension. And like I said, that's not always the case, but the fact that we haven't recovered these women, it pisses me off. Like it
Yeah.
irks me.
I'm someone who, like, I was a single mom at the time, and when we did have to go remote, going remote was a corporate decision. We are sending everybody remote, but they recognize we know your daycare is closed too. So I had we had people complaining, like, all these women with their children home, we can hear them running in the background and they're disruptive during meetings. And he was like, okay, guess what? They got to be home. Where are they going to go? So if having children in the background is disturbing for you, my team member doesn't need to be on that meeting. Send them the notes. They're like, or he was like, or suck up the fact that we're all doing the best we can, and you're gonna hear and
Right.
see kids sometimes. Like, it was so empowering. But that, again, and all of these studies have this in common. They all identify it comes from leadership. My leadership stood up for me, and my
Mhm.
leadership was the one who said, you're gonna shut your mouth about it and
Right.
like help people accountable. So it really is going to come from leadership. But You know what's so crazy is we noticed this trend. We saw it and people didn't realize. When you couldn't go to a restaurant, when you couldn't go stay at a hotel, when airports only had one gate open and you couldn't travel as much and stuff like that, and there weren't enough flight crew to make flights happen. Do you know why? Because those roles, those industries traditionally fall to women. They're women dominant. So when women started having to resign in droves, we couldn't go to restaurants anymore. There were no servers. We couldn't have as many flight attendants. And I'm like, you all saw this and felt it, and you still didn't think it was a problem. And you still don't think it's a problem.
Right. It's again, it's having more allies and people speaking up. And the reason we don't have allies for minorities, women, LGBTQIA, people are scared to speak up. They're scared to lose their jobs. They're scared to be labeled as one thing when they're actually just trying to help. That's like a way bigger issue, but it's still not addressing. We're still not addressing the fact that we've lost women, minorities. We haven't recovered them, and companies are actually
have to replace them.
Right. And companies are, I'm sorry, this is not every company. Companies are just becoming more toxic every single day. I cannot tell you how many times on LinkedIn I see somebody talking about a company. And like when you get laid off, in order to get your severance pay, you have to sign a document that says you won't badmouth the company, sue them, all these things. And that's fine. But some of these companies need to be called out. Like I've been like, I've never been fired from a job, but my layoffs, I kind of look at it and I'm like, all right, what really happened here?
It was like,
you know what I mean?
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
Well, owing to what Amber said about like being afraid to stand out and like not being afraid to stand up for someone, even if she loses her job. It takes a revolutionary, right? Even with like America, like it took revolutionaries to stand up and potentially lose everything. And because they were the first ones to cut the grass down, the person who walked behind them had somewhat of a path already. And the more people who came behind them, they have an easily walkable trail now because there's been enough. But it takes one person willing to lose their job, willing to take the company down, willing to stand up to those CEOs and those leadership and like say, no, I don't need my severance. You messed up and I'm going to make sure you don't keep doing it. But like, it's a hard choice we got to make. Like we're breadwinners for our families, all of us. So it's going to take someone, but it's not easy.
Well, and what also happened from the Deloitte study that I read, and I read the women that left the workforce and are tried to come back after 2020. Companies used it as a weapon to pay them less. This is from a Deloitte study, and it's not just in tech, but in cyber. I personally saw, as a sales rep, because we get base plus commission, I saw people trying after 2020 trying to pay me less than what I'm worth. And I just found a company that would pay me what I'm worth and what I know I'm worth. But this Deloitte study says that women have also lost the bargaining power because of that. So like if their husband worked, the wife lost her job or she decided to stay home, things started coming back. It's now 2023 or whatever. Women are coming back and they have lost bargaining power for the pay that they deserve, which is even less than the pay gap they were already dealing with. So there's all these things that are going on. And again, it just goes back to leadership. The leaders in this country and around the world that are running these companies, y'all need to change. I'm sorry if you don't like it. And I never say hire somebody for the color of their skin, their gender, if their hair is purple. The best person for the job always wins. But women are being overlooked more now than ever. And I have had recruiters and hiring managers tell me that they just interviewed me for a woman because I'm a woman. At the beginning of my career, I'm like, okay, I'm the diversity hire. Great. I'm going to use it as a stepping stone. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you tell me at this point that you're hiring me because you have to check a box, I'm sorry, you need to be slapped. And why are you even telling me that? Keep that to yourself.
This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like literally Erica does get people who say this. Like I've yet to have somebody actually say this because I'm sure I would make some kind of TikTok about it. But at this point, Erica does get this all the time and it's kind of crazy.
What
Well,
about
and
that
who's supposed to say that
company
to
that,
Erica? I wouldn't say that to Erica. Have you seen her? Like,
For real. That's what I'm saying.
well, hold
Shocking.
on, Amber. I remember a situation when you were talked to about your TikToks and your videos and were told to do certain things with them and not do certain things with them. And my question is, if you were, not a woman and not as, free spirited in who you are, would it really matter?
I don't think it had so much to do with being a woman as it had to do with me breaking boundaries and borders that they had set up in place. Again, that's what I do, right? So, like what Meryl was saying just now, right, is it takes people that are revolutionists and things like that. Unfortunately, sorry, Mom, by nature, that's just who I am. I've been a rebel since I
she
was
raised a
freshly out,
rebel.
right? Like rebel to
Good
all
job,
things.
Mama Amber.
Exactly. And I question everything, and I question things for the fairness of it all. Right. And it's why it's why the three of us and everybody else part of our team for Teach Kids Tech, we do what we do because we're speaking out for people who don't normally have a voice or would be too afraid to. And then, kind of to speak to that, Erica and Meryl, where you guys were talking about, hey, people are leaving the industry and we don't have as many females, in leadership. Well, let's think about that for a second. Right. I've had 2 children. During which time I've had to take, maternity leave. So from a business perspective, it does come down to, whether for better or worse, it's kind of like, okay, well, we do need somebody in that seat, right? So in their mind, it's like, well, is it better to have a woman who, potentially this woman is pregnant? Or, I mean, when I started at Trustwave, back in my heyday, I was pregnant with Noah. Right. And so it was kind of like, oh no, I was so afraid to let anybody know. I was like, I'm not lesser than because I need to take like a break, or maybe, I get sick or something like that, and it's those little things where it almost is, like I said, it keeps going back to that draconian culture of like, if it's going to happen once, it might interfere with everything. So let's give, maybe this advancement to somebody who we know won't need maternity leave, or who we know won't, kind of have this stuff that they're going through. So I don't know. I mean, it's a terrible way of thinking, but I do still think that is kind of the thought process that goes into play a lot of the time.
Well, and with those people that have told me, somebody said you got to be a special kind of stupid to tell someone you're the diversity hire. But see, sometimes they don't even say that. And if you listen and you read the interview or situation, why are you asking me if I'm married? Why are you asking me if I have kids? If I plan to grow my family? If I plan to do
They
all these
shouldn't.
things? Would you ask a man that? You're not going to ask him like, oh, do you plan on having more kids? Like,
Well, that's because of the woman is expected to handle that stuff for
But
a
it-
man, right? Traditionally. speaking.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
the mindset. Yeah.
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 But that that is stuff you don't ask women or talk to, especially in an interview. If people
Yeah.
start going down a rabbit hole about my personal life, which I don't mind to a certain extent, people asking me
Mhm.
questions, but a lot of the roles that we take have travel, and they don't want to put
Right.
a woman in that position because she might have babysitting issues.
Yeah.
Like,
I've had
why
to
is
justify.
that even a thing?
They're like, oh, you can travel? I'm like, yeah. They're like, how? I'm like, my parents, I can ask occasionally with enough notice.
Yeah.
I can,
I've had to
but
do
I had
it.
to like literally lay it out for them, like the logistics, and like justify it. And I'm like,
Yeah. And that's so funny you say that, because when I started working with Erica at Force Point, it was kind of, the tables were kind of turned, right? Like I was the one that was like, hey, you're going to need to, watch Noah, or you're going to need to help out with this because I'm traveling for work. Right. And so every manager I had, they're like, are you sure this is okay? I'm like, I wear the pants. Okay. Like that's kind of like the attitude I had to have, and so, yeah, luckily for me, I was fortunate enough to where at one point I did have that. Right. And so I don't know. I think but again, Erica and I talk about this all the time. If you're even in an interview like that, I mean, that's your red flag to run to the hills, right? Like, right.
But moms need jobs.
Right.
They do need jobs, but there's never going to be a situation. I'm not even, and if there is, call all 3 of us immediately, because I promise you, there is never a situation where you have to take one job just because you need a job right then and there. There are so many other opportunities. You just need to branch out to your network more and utilize that.
Seriously,
because I was never, yeah.
We'll
that's
hair
my
up and
thing, right? That's kind of why I have the attitude I do, whether it's, sorry again, Mom. But it's kind of like, hey, I don't, you guys need me here more than I need you. Right. Because I can go find another job, but you can't find somebody that's going to bring the level of care, effort, dedication, passion, innovative thinking that I do. And if you guys don't value it, I'll go find somewhere else. Right. But I will be damned if I sit here and let things like this go unnoticed or unannounced or unspoken for. So
yeah, I agree. Do what Amber said. Call 3 of us and we'll mob with you.
yeah.
We're pretty scary in person. Okay. We got to start wrapping up this episode. We're at 45 minutes. Those of you who stuck with us this long, we thank you and love you so much.
Yeah.
So we're going to move into final takeaways. So you can do a what have you learned, or you can do a how do we solve it if you guys want, or one of each. You can do one of each. What have we learned? What are the problems we're still seeing? And how do we solve them? What can organizations do to be more inclusive, to be more supportive? And Erica or Amber, either one of you.
I'm going to go first because Erica's going to steal all of mine. So okay. I'm telling you, she always does, always. No, I was going to say, I think one thing I learned today, which actually, thank you, Erica, for kind of enlightening Meryl and I on this last week. But yeah, I didn't realize how bad the problem is now. I knew that it was a problem. I didn't realize that 50% of women before they're 35, that's huge. I do think my biggest thing, and I'll say this forever because it's my nature, is having a culture in which you actually practice what you preach. So if you're saying we want this to be inclusive, be open to people saying, hey, it's actually not. Can we fix that? Instead of just being like, shh, no, you don't get to have a say. You don't get to have a voice. We hired you. We did our part. Now you just do your job. Right. So I think that cultures need to be more open to creating an environment that is willing to listen and hear people out without judgment.
I like it. I agree with all of that. To add to that, senior leadership, you need to get your heads out of your butts and actually realize how much women, minorities, and LGBTQ community brings. Stop looking at it as a checklist and talk to your people. Talk to your employees, especially like your females, and it doesn't just have to be females. Do surveys within your own company and really take that information in and do something with it. Unfortunately, a lot of people are going to be scared to take surveys or talk because they're going to be, scared that there's going to be repercussions. But I think that, it's 2023. We need to stop the crap, and senior leadership needs to focus on the real issue, which is, attracting this talent, a diverse talent, and not just saying that they're going to do it, because I'm so sick of hearing and seeing, oh, we have a chief diversity officer, but it's a white guy. And I'm not saying they have to be, a black woman or whatever, but really, that's like your senior leadership is still all white. Like, why are we not promoting more women and minorities? If you need help on what direction to go with DE&I, I'm not an expert, but I'll tell you how I feel about it. So okay.
Those are awesome. I think I'm going to pick that. This was such an enlightening topic for me. And because again, I've been sitting up here on my little award, like Cloud9, and I'm just like, oh, everything's all sunshine and rainbows where women are killing it and getting recognized and things are happy. But it's important to keep in mind that even if you're blessed to have like a journey where you've never met some of these people or biases or mindsets, even if you're like me, who've had mostly supportive and great managers. I talked to my 2 cohorts who have it. There are still women out there who are often being paid less, promoted less, and deal with discrimination and harassment on a daily basis. So it's important to keep that in mind. It's important to keep in mind that we're always here for you. You can always come to us. We will be the noisy a-holes if you're too afraid to do it. We want to hold people accountable. We're going to start doxing a-hole companies. I'm sorry. We're going to start. So all I want to say is that keep that in mind. And companies, if you're pissed that you've got unfilled recs and you need all these security people and your security people are overworked and literally on the verge of burnout and leaving, whether they're male or female, quit cutting out half the population. Quit cutting out the females. Quit cutting out other ethnicities. Quit cutting out people just because they're different from you and think different from you. Honestly, like some of the most profitable and successful companies in cyber are run by female CEOs. And why do we think that is? Because they're not discriminating against anybody. They're just getting good people in. And they want to hear opposing points of view. They want to hear opposing, like new approaches to things, new solutions to things. So like Erica said, get your head out of your butts. That's all you can do. All right, little housekeeping. Oh, wait, one more thing.
Stephen Rudolph, how you doing? Good to see you. Technology change is easy. Cultural change is hard, was his comment. Great comment. Thank you for that.
Excellent comment. Thank you.
Go ahead.
All right, little bit of housekeeping. Please keep in mind that very soon Cyber Queens will be wrapping up here. Where you normally see us, we'll be going live with ITSP Magazine. You will be able to find us on all the ITSP Magazine platforms coming to you very soon. Yay for Cyber Queens. Additionally, you'll be able to support and sponsor us if you have any interest in doing so. In the meantime, you can still like, share, and subscribe. It is the best way to support us, and it's completely free. Personal plug, lastly, the Cybersecurity Women of the Year Awards by the United Cyber Alliance are open. I have a post about it. My ask is not that you vote for me unless you feel inclined. My ask is that you educate yourself on the women, you follow their work, you give them a read, and you just vote for someone you think is worth it, because women are under-recognized, and we are trying to lift each other up, and we are trying to show each other that all the years you put in of sacrifice and missing out on family events and things was worth it, and it's affecting change. So please go do that. If you do nothing else today, we would love and appreciate you for it. And we, the Queens, will see you back next week. We love you.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
I didn't have the closing graphic ready because I was talking.
Yes. It was playing.
All right, guys. Did you see that? Did you see that lightning, Erica?
No, I didn't.
My whole room turned purple. It was like boom, boom, boom.